Hey everyone, we are doing question 1.2 now. Okay, so it says 8 years ago in 2011, the average cup of coffee cost $3 in Australia. Okay, the diagram below illustrates the cost incurred for a $3 cup of coffee. So it basically says in a $3 cup of coffee, these are all the expenses, right? Profit, labor, cup and lid, it's quite expensive, milk, and coffee beans. Okay, so those are all the costs that are incurred. So let's just jump into the questions. Cool, so it says, state the highest cost incurred for a $3 cup of coffee. So the highest cost incurred here, right, is 1.7 Australian dollars, right? And that is for labor. Okay, so it's for labor basically means the work or the person that you employ in order to make the coffee. Okay. So, sort of like an easyish entry-level question. Then it says, write in its simplest ratio. This is very important, right? You won't get all your marks, unless you write it in its simplest ratio. The cost of coffee beans to milk. Now, coffee beans are 35, right? And milk is 30, if we look over here. Okay. So what we're going to do is, we've written it here, but it's not in its simplest form, right? Simplest form means that if there is no number, no integer number, right, 2 and above, generally speaking, that can go into this number to make it smaller. But in this case, we know there is a number that can go into both of these numbers to make them smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 5. Now, you could be saying, okay, Mark's like, that's all good and well, but I didn't know to do that, right? What you should do is you do this. You say, can it be divided by 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10? Those are the ones I generally start with to simplify a ratio. Here, 2 doesn't go in, nor does 3, but 5 does. So the ratio is 7 to 6, okay? And there's no number, right, of 2 and above that can go into this ratio to make it simpler. Okay, so that is your final answer. Okay. Let's now move on to 1.2.3. So it says, what percentage of the $3 was spent on the actual coffee beans? So we know that it was 35 cents, right? So we need to say 0.35, right? And now you might be saying, why did you make it 0.35? Because we know that 35 cents is less than $1, okay? And we're going to put it over $3, okay? So either you need to put your fraction in terms of dollars or cents. So you can either say 35 over 300, right? This is in cents. Or you can put it in dollars, okay? Where 0.35, because we know that 100 cents equals $1. Okay, so here I've said 0.35 cents, because that's now in dollars, over 3. Or you can say 35 cents over 300 cents. Okay, they'll give you the same answer, but you just must make sure that the top and the bottom are in the same unit. Okay, but when we want to work out a percentage, which is what they've asked us, right, we always have to times by 100. Okay, and I'm going to show you how both of these are equal to the same thing. Okay, cool. 0.35 over 3 times by 100. That is 11.67 cents, right? We always round off to 2 decimal places, okay? So we know that the 6 over here, the third 6 is above 5. Therefore, we round the second 6 up to 7. Let me show you that it's exactly the same thing if we do it in terms of the cents denomination. Look, exactly the same, okay? So you can do it either way. The most important thing whenever we do questions that involve units is that we make sure that all the variables or all the inputs into the question are in the same units. Otherwise, it's kind of like a weird thing that we're working out, right? Because if I had said like 35 over 3, then it would have been more than 100%, and like it's a weird thing, right? So this always has to be, if they're talking about a percentage of something, it will generally be 100% or less. And always make sure your units are consistent. Okay, that's important. Let's now move on to 1.2.4. It says, calculate the profit that would have been made if 1,200 cups of coffee were sold. So let's see how much we're going to have profit-wise for 1 cup. So we have 45 cents, right? So 45 cents can either be left as 45 or it can be written as $0.45. Again, you can do it either way, okay? But our answer has to be in dollars. So you can do the calculation in cents and then convert into dollars, or convert it into dollars initially and then you don't have to do it at the end. I'm going to do it both ways. So I'm saying 45 cents times 1,200. And then I'm saying $0.45 times 1,200. Okay, 45 times 1,200. So that's 54,000 cents. Okay, 0.45 times. Did it on the other side, so it's $550. US dollars. Not US, Mark's Oz. Sorry, Australian dollars. Okay, so what we have to do here is we know that 100 cents equals $1. So we have to say here, this amount of cents divided by 100 will give us a certain amount of dollars. So do you see? In the end, they both give us the same answer. Okay. Importantly, when you're moving from a small measure to a large measure, you always divide, right? There's going to be fewer dollars than there are cents. Okay, that's why we divide. Okay, so the same answer. If you don't put in dollars, you will lose some of your marks. Okay. Let's now do the last question for 1.2. It says, determine in Rand the profit calculated in the previous question if the exchange rate is in 2011 was 1 South African Rand to 0.13301 Australian dollar, which I keep calling US dollar, but it's actually Australian. Okay, so we know that for every this amount of Australian dollar, we get 1 ZAR. Okay, so now what we have to do, right, is we want to know how many South African rands there are in 540 Australian dollars. Sure, tongue twisters today. Okay, so what we're going to do is we know that there's going to be more South African rands, right, than there are Australian dollars. Because we see here that 1 South African rand equals a fractional amount or a part of an Australian dollar. So what we actually do here is we divide by this amount, okay? Because what you're doing, right, is you're saying Australian dollar 2 rand, okay? You're saying that it is 0.13301 over 1, okay? So what we're doing is we're going to divide this by that same fraction that we've put over here, right? So it's exactly what we've written here. Australian dollar, 2 rand, Australian dollar, 2 rand. And we're just going to put that into our calculator. Remember, anything divided by 1 is itself, so you don't have to put the 1 in. And that gives us the amount in rands. So the amount in rands is 4,059 rand and 85 cents. Why is it 85 cents? Because the third decimal place is 5. If it's 5 and above, we round up. 85, whenever we're talking about a currency, it is always only 2 decimal places. Importantly, the number of rands is larger than the number of Australian dollars. That is what we expected because the Australian dollars is a stronger currency. Okay, hope that makes sense. That's your answer. And now we're moving on to 1.3.